Hey everyone, so today I'm doing another book review. Today we are looking at Preacher. I'm going to do the entire series, but I thought I'd split it up into individual episodes. So I've got the 6 books, so I'll be doing 6 episodes. So yeah, today we're looking at book 1, and this is, before I get into it, I'll just talk a bit about it. So this is a series written by Garth Ennis, who you might know from writing The Boys. Garth Ennis also did Punisher, Welcome Back Frank, and more of a Preacher run. Steve Dillon did the art for Punisher, Welcome Back Frank as well. So yeah, today I'm looking at this. If you've seen my, I'm trying to think which video it was one of my unboxing videos where I unboxed the entire series. I think it was one of the longer ones I did. Yeah, you'll know that like I'm a fan of the series, and I've recently read this. I've read the entire series now of Preacher, and I really loved it. I really loved it. I read a lot of Batman stuff, but like honestly none of it compares to anything like this when it comes to in terms of like violence and stuff like that. This is it kind of goes above and beyond, honestly. The show sort of more so, although there is stuff in this that they can't obviously put in the shows, although the show does pretty much add a lot of stuff. I think you'll find that with The Boys as well. So eventually, now I've read this, I really want to read The Boys, so after I've read that I'll review that. If that's something you guys want to see, then let me know down in the comments below. Before we get into this, just ask that you subscribe, leave a like, really helps me out. Was the son of a preacher man. This is an amazing series and I highly recommend it. Please go get it. It's one of the best series that I've read for a while. The art, the storytelling, everything is incredible. The character development, yeah, everything about it is great. And I would recommend getting it in these 6 books, or the absolutes that come in the 3 hardbacks. Yeah, because that's just such a good story, you'll love it. So, spoiler-free talk. This follows Jesse Custer, a reverend who, after breaking up with his girlfriend Tulip, goes and becomes a preacher. Then he sort of gets the voice of God, if that makes sense. He gets something called Genesis, which gives him the power of the voice of God. Sort of goes to find God and asks sort of why the world is the way it is, and why there's stuff in the world that God made, stuff like that. So it deals a lot with religion, deals a lot with humanity, morality. I think if you're someone who's religious, you might not like this because you're probably going to think it's blasphemous or something. I myself, I'm not a religious person, and so I had no problem with it talking about Christianity, anything like that. There's some great characters in here. You have, like I said, Jesse Custer, you have his girlfriend Tulip, you have the vampire Cassidy, who is really good in this. You have the Saint of Killers in this, which is such a great character, so good. I don't know if I preferred the Saint of Killers in the show or in this. There's a lot less talking in the show, which kind of makes him more ominous, although in this he's kind of unkillable, which is very cool. So, I guess I'll go into spoilers now. Was the son of a preacher man. If you've seen the show and you haven't read the comic, I would really recommend it. If you've not done either, I think I'd watch the show first, then read the comic, because I watched the show first, then I read the comic, and I love them both so much. I think if you were to read the comic first, then watch the show, I don't think you'd enjoy the show as much, just because you'd be comparing it to the book all the time. And like I found myself doing that with the book, like I was comparing it to the show all the time. Although there's stuff in this, like I said, that they can't necessarily show in the TV show, or the stuff that they just completely miss out. So this book 1 actually is like up until it's the first 3 series pretty much of the show. You know, obviously they take stuff from later books and work it into the first season of the show and the later story. So yeah, you have people like Odin Quincannon, who are in later books a lot later on, and I think they're in like book 5, and he gets worked into season 1 of the show. You have Jesus Desard, I think he's called, who's in later books, who gets worked into season 4 of the show. But yeah, so like I say, I've said this, but I really love this book, and I'm probably going to end up reading it again. I might even upgrade to get to the Absolute editions, because I bought this after finishing the show, and I just bought the entire series because I got it for a good price. So let's talk a bit about this. So it starts off with 3 main characters in a diner, the trio. You have Jesse, Tulip, Cassidy, and one thing I really loved about this book is that it's kind of written, it's really written to be a TV show. Like, it starts off and it says it was the time of the preacher, and it's that Willie Nelson song. So you're reading this and you're kind of singing that in your head all the time. Like, you're reading about Cassidy and Jesse talking, they're having this conversation about what to do next, and that's something that's, I think it's that in the end of season 1 in the show, when they're in the diner after they've left the town, I think it is. And then you flash back to when Jesse was a preacher, and he goes into a bar, and you sort of instantly get a sort of sense of Jesse's character. Like, he's this guy who doesn't take any nonsense and like will fight, and ideally, like, you read, and so you're reading this and you see a preacher getting in fights, swearing, and it's very interesting. It's very, very good. So then it flashes to heaven, which is really something we don't see in the show, and so they're talking about losing Genesis, and it's just really interesting because you see a lot more sort of about the angels in the book, and it's strange because it evolves more in the book because you get more of a sense of the characters, and they talk more about heaven and Genesis and things like that. So towards the end of issue 1, we meet the Saint of Killers, who instantly shoots the angel that has gone to sort of pick him up, and then we get flashbacks to Genesis taking hold of Jesse Custer, and you get this like amazing full page art of Jesse Custer just taken control of by Genesis, and it instantly obliterates his entire church, and it's sort of incredible because it's just so cool, and that is what leads Tulip to find Jesse. She sees the big explosion of the church, she goes over there. Yeah, it's very cool, and all the while, something that's mentioned throughout the book a lot, and it's only in the show for one episode, part of an episode, is John Wayne. And I know a lot of people don't really like this because he says Pilgrim a lot of the time, and he's like, well, Pilgrim, this and this, and I really enjoyed that because I thought John Wayne is obviously the voice inside Jesse's head. He's grown up with all this trauma because of the Longells. He's had all this trauma from Jody, from TC, and so he's kind of got this figure of John Wayne in his head that talks him through and helps him through things. And so I took it as like he'll have seen a John Wayne film where he'll have said Pilgrim, and that'll have really stuck with him, and so that's why John Wayne says Pilgrim so much. And then end of the issue, Saint of Killers comes in, absolutely kills all of the policemen, which is the start of season 2 in the show. One thing I didn't really like about the show when I was watching it, and this, I know I'm going to reference the show a lot, I know I have been, but it's the easiest way I think for me to talk about it is to talk about the show as well in comparison. So one thing I didn't really like about the show was season 1 felt so slow to me. So yeah, I loved sort of the grotesque violence in this, but Steve Dillon draws it in such a way where it's almost comical, but it stands out so much. The visceral nature of his art is so good. So that's one thing that I really enjoyed about Preacher, the whole entire series. And even some of the one-shots not drawn by Dillon, they felt so different because they weren't drawn by him. You get so used to that. But so when he doesn't do the art, you're sort of like, hang on a minute. Although it's not bad or anything, I love the ones that were drawn by Dillon. So yeah, I'll say that in this first book, Jesse does use the word of God, Genesis. He does use it quite a lot. Well, he uses it more, I'd say, in the book than he does in the show. Does that make sense? In the show, there's times where you think, oh, he could use it, and he doesn't. Whereas in the book, he's always kind of using it whenever he needs it or whenever he can. I think the reason is because in the show, they make it apparent that the Saint of Killers tracks Jesse through the word of God, and so that kind of stops him using it. Whereas in this, Saint of Killers is just hunting him anyway. The word of God doesn't make a bit of difference to him, doesn't make a bit of difference. So Jesse is more free to use it almost, which I really enjoyed. I was like, if you're going to give the character this power, then have him use it, you know? And something I really enjoyed about this was that the Word of God, or Genesis, I'm going to keep saying the Word of God, I know, but Genesis works against the Saint of Killers. Like Jesse says enough and he puts his gun back, whereas in the show it doesn't work on him because he doesn't have a soul, and so they have to transfer that bit of his soul, and that's 1% of Jesse's soul that then stops Genesis working. That's something that feels completely different in the show. I like how they've taken the inspiration from this, although yeah, it feels like completely different, and there's aspects of the show that I'll talk about in relation to later books where they go to hell, things like that. Hitler's in it and Jesus is in it, whereas he's not in, like, they never ever make an appearance in this, you know. Jesus, Hitler are not in this, they never go to hell in this, although hell is in this, and like you see the devil, you see the Saint of Killers in hell. It's really, really interesting. Much like the Saint of Killers in the show, the Word of God Genesis does not work on Jody because he's so evil, he has no soul, he's just a horrible, horrible guy. Yeah, the Word of God does not work on him, which was something that I preferred in this, you know. In the show, why can't Jesse use the Word of God on Jody? Well, it's because he's had to sell 1% of his soul. My neighbours or whoever down the street has got like a chainsaw going or something, so I'm really sorry for the noise that's in the background if you can hear it. I'm going to try and edit some of it out and quieten it down a bit, but yeah. So then we move on to Jody and the Longels. I really enjoyed this in the book because it paints Jody as this like horrible guy that Jesse's terrified of, and you have reason for him to be terrified of. And like we see just the horrible, horrible stuff that he does. You know, we see him kill Jesse's dad. We see him nail a dog to a post, which is just horrific. It's horrible. We see him break Jesse's arm, and they lock Jesse in the coffin. You kind of really feel for Jesse. Like, he's been through all these horrible, horrible traumatic experiences, and he's telling Tulip about it, which Tulip never had any idea, and he's telling her because like he thinks they're both going to die. The big moment happens at the end of the issue where Tulip and Jesse, they're talking, and all of a sudden morning rolls around, they come in, and Jesse's trying to bargain with him. He doesn't try the Word of God because he's already tried it and it's not worked, so he's just asking him to stop, and Jody doesn't listen, comes in, shoots Tulip straight through the head and kills her. And I was reading that, I was shocked because I didn't expect her to die, you know? One thing I didn't really like about this was that the next issue, literally 2 pages on, she wakes up and she's alive and she has a conversation with God, and Jesse's traumatised, which, I mean, you would be, wouldn't you? But although in the show they handled Tulip's death completely different, and it was something I quite liked about it, was that the Saint of Killers killed Tulip, because then she deals with this PTSD from that, and they're forced to take her to the Longels in order to save her, and so they're tied to the Longels in a way that like they can't leave because of all this. And then after a talk with John Wayne, Jesse goes on a killing spree, pretty much kills TC. To see our main character kill someone, and for it to be satisfying, and for it to sort of be like, they really deserve that, and we're glad that they're dead, almost, you know? It's sort of strange, but it's quite an empowering moment for Jesse to walk out the door and defeat TC, and then he goes out to defeat Jody. Yeah, I'm really aware that I'm rambling, so don't worry. Then we get the fight scene with Jody, and he finally defeats him, and the house blows up, killing Grandma Longel, and she shoots out of the house like a firework almost. It's quite funny, but it's also very satisfying. It's a very satisfying end to the story. Jesse's defeated the guy that killed his dad, you know, he's got his father's lighter back. And it's a very satisfying end to the first book. You have Jesse and Tulip kissing in front of the burning house, kind of signifying their relationship is back to the point it was, and everything in Jesse's past is now kind of been defeated because he's managed to kill the whole Longel family. That was a review on book 1. I mean, I know I rambled for a lot of that, and I know it's going to be a long video. So if anyone is still watching, thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for that. For more videos, really enjoy making them, and I'll have a lot more coming out soon. For the book, for the series in general, I would give it 5 out of 5. For this book, I would give it a 4 out of 5. I think it sort of really works its way up and sort of fleshes things out. Although I think it's once Hairstar comes in that we really sort of get the story moving. So yeah, that was my review for that. I think you can probably tell I don't script any of this, and so I ramble a lot, but I might script the next couple videos just to try and keep them a bit shorter. Yeah, let me know what you thought of the video down below, and I will see you guys later. Bye.